Welcome back, guys, to a new show this week. This week, we are actually starting to finally get into my most favorite topic, and that is draft strategy and the way that we go about each draft pick cycle and how we think when we're in live in a draft as things come off the board and things are left on the board and how that changes. So tonight's topic will be from each of us, our draft strategy in the way that we draft. At first, we'll talk about if we had an ideal situation, and then we'll talk about give me 1 second. I'm just going to change it. Okay. Thank you, Raymond.
You did decide to frame yourself up at the beginning?
Yeah,
or
sorry. Anyway, so we're going to talk about it afterwards, and the fact is if like our favorite pieces or something we had in mind comes off the board, and well, how do you rally or maintain your picks?
I'm going to use the word composure.
Composure.
Composure
yes,
is good, especially if you're a nervous drafter.
Yeah,
The strategy, but maintaining that strategy that you developed, if you have one. Obviously, if you don't have one,
yeah.
you're
We're
if you're out there
bursting
just
with knowledge because we love it. We burst.
if you're just fucking, if you're just like raw dogging the draft and just grabbing people off the top, that's going to be rough.
Just make it.
I mean, that's a strategy of like, I'm just going to pick top projected. That's not going to work out for you because the people that do those stats are.
Yes. Also, a caveat to
dumb.
that, we are drafting as if there is 0 auto draft teams in your league. And that's an important thing because you'll see how it changes the dynamic of a draft real fast. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we're ready to roll. Everybody likes this topic. So, Ray, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your ideal strategy for draft?
So are we going through the whole draft or just kind of like early
I would
draft?
say, let's say 7 picks.
Where you start out, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
7.
So we talked about it a little bit before the show when we were kind of like just laying out how the episode was going to go. I think that quarterback as your number 1 pick is a safe option, right? I think most leagues always do that. Now, where I differ from that is if Josh Allen is picked before me, I'm not picking a quarterback up first round because I'm not worried about anyone in the first 2 rounds picking up a second quarterback yet. So if I'm in regardless, first of all, if you're in less than a 10-man league, you don't need to get a quarterback first round. There's going to be one available within the top 3, even 4 rounds. So, but going off of a 10-man league, right? If Josh Allen is picked before me, before it's my time to draft, I will pick up a running back. Now, I'm going to stick to kind of the QB thing. Josh Allen is my quarterback. That's not why I'm not picking a quarterback the first round if he's picked before me. It's because you're calling me on Discord, Jim. I don't know if you're meaning to do that.
Did I?
Yeah.
I have it open. Yeah, I'll close it. Sorry about that.
I was like,
I don't know how that happened. As I was.
Anyway, it's not because he's my quarterback, although I'm sure Brock, if he was here, would say that that's exactly what it is. It's because his caliber, in my opinion, is so far above everyone else's that he is always worth a first-round pick, whereas I could wait around and still get someone like maybe Mahomes or Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need those dudes. Right, yeah, he scores so high, I have to get him first round if he's available. I have to. He's number 1 fantasy player overall. Now, given that he's gone in the first round.
ESPN has him at 3, but yes.
Well, ESPN also makes you fucking pay to read their online articles.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
And says things like Kelsey should always be number 1 overall. Shit like that.
Yeah, that's what I was about. Did you see their tight end article?
I'll stop adding like numbers to this.
Yeah, you should. Well, do it, just not from ESPN. ESPN made a list of top 10 tight ends, and before they got to a single one, they're like, pay to read this. But I was like, go fuck yourself, ESPN. You're garbage.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know where you get that one from, but all right.
But back to what I was saying. The reason I would get a running back is because pass production is so vital now to the running back position. When you had passing, when you had receivers for your PPR or just yardage receiving, and then you had rushing for your running backs, you didn't have that blend.
Right.
It was kind of like that position was a little bit different. But now running back is objectively your highest scorer after your quarterback because they're getting points for rushing, they're getting points for yardage, they're getting points for touchdowns, and because the league has adjusted to a more pass rushing, like pass rushers in the backfield. Obviously, if you have a dominant back like Derrick Henry, that's less the case. But when you're talking about the pool of the top running backs, the reason they're that high pointage isn't because they're rushing; it's because of their combined points. So I think that if I don't get Josh Allen, I'm going to go for a healthy, reliable running back. Like I would pick up someone like I wouldn't pick up Derrick Henry. I would get like Jonathan Taylor, or I would go for like Leonard Fournette, Austin Eckler. Eckler's a little bit on the more injured side, but yeah, I would pick up dudes like that who I know they can run, they can catch, and they get used a lot on their team. That's what I would do in the first, probably the first 3 rounds. I would try to get Josh Allen. If I can't, I would get a running back first round. Then I would get a quarterback, probably whichever is left of the top 10 that round, which, you know, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll work out for me. And then back to running back for round 3. So I'm going to try and fill those 3 because those are going to be your highest scoring positions, especially if you're running in a league where you fucked with the rushing back points, because in my brother's league, it is the number 1 scoring position. He changed the rules, by the way. We had a come to Jesus meeting with them. We had to adjust a bunch of stuff because his rules were just absolutely
crazy.
Yeah, and then after that, dip into the wide receivers. I think my main strategy is just like when you do your initial slot on your roster, those are your like important picks, right? So you need to think about that. Don't waste any of your first 7 picks on a tight end, a kicker, or a defense. Don't do it.
Oh no,
fill your quarterback, fill your 2 running backs, fill your 2 wide receivers. Go back and get your flex. Like you should go back to wide receiver and running back. I don't even draft early a second quarterback because especially if I get Allen, he's going to be in all but 1 game of the week, and then I can supplement, you know, either a middling quarterback or whoever's projected highest at that week.
Sure.
You know.
To add to your point real quick, we have 2 flexes this year on the roster. That was a change.
We're running
so
2?
We have 2 flexes this year.
So that's even more reason to go back and get more wide receivers and running backs.
For sure.
I'm probably legitimately might not draft a kicker or a defense this year, even at the end. The only reason I would is because we do have the leagues we're playing in are all 10-plus leagues. It might get to the point where it's like, do I really need to draft this wide receiver, or are they going to be available, you know, later on? At that point, I might just pick up a kicker. Like if Bass is available in, you know, the 9th round, I might be like, oh, okay, I'll pick him up.
Sure,
because he's a reliable kicker. But yeah,
okay. So let me ask it real quick. So let's say you do get Allen though. Let's say you get Allen. Does that change the order of running back, receiver, or anything for you?
I know it doesn't. So it would still go, like I said, priority is Allen.
Sure.
And then running back. So if you lose Allen, obviously it shifts to running back. But if I get my way and I get Allen,
sure.
Next round, running back. Next round after that, running back again. Another reason for that is because the wide receivers, even the best wide receivers, aren't that sexy to me, like point-wise. You want them because you don't want a fucking bolo. But to me, it's not that common for a wide receiver to have a 50-point game, right? No. It's far more common to see high-scoring running backs because of the passing, catching, and yardage for both. So they're double dipping. They're getting points from both point sets, but rarely do you have a wide receiver getting points from an alternate source. If your league has punt return yardage going towards the punt returner, that can help boost a wide receiver. Not enough to put them above running backs for me. So my priority is always going to be filling those first 3 high scoring slots.
What approximately what pick are you going to use to look at a tight end that you might want?
A tight end?
Are you just going to let it ride and see who's left?
Right. It depends on who's available. So
to me, Ray's right in the sense of like by the time he comes back for a tight end, you're not going to have Mark Andrews on that board. You're not going to have Kelsey. So
if he is, grab him. But
but unlikely he's not. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mark Andrews is going to go with the receivers.
7th pick for me, just because of the fact of
that's late.
Is that late? Well, I'm not saying I'm going to get like a great tight end, but
I know what you're saying. But
that's a good ballpark to pick one up.
It's not bad, but if you don't get a tight end, my thing with a tight end is if you can't get a tight end you don't waste a draft pick on them.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
So if I can't get Knox or one of those big guys like Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews, if I can't get a tight end that I like, which there's not a lot of them, I'm not going to use a draft pick on them. I'm going to find a better flex because the tight end position is a low scoring position most of the time. Yeah, so I mean, if they're available late in the draft, I'll grab them. Sure. But Mark Andrews is going to go with the receivers. Yes. So is Kelsey.
So is Kelsey.
Probably Kittle Waller probably will too. Even I agree with you. I think Waller's going to be 50-50. I think his early pick rate will be 50-50 because people are kind of unsure how he's going to be because he hasn't really had a healthy season his entire career.
That's the big thing of it. Sure.
But that's the same thing with Kittle, where it's like we know this dude is talented. People are going to pick him up because 2 years ago he was, the number one receiving player.
Yeah.
Absolutely saved the Niners. So those guys are going to get picked up early. I'm probably not worried about drafting a tight end. I don't remember who I drafted early. I might not have even drafted tight end last year because if Knox wasn't relevant at the start of last season points wise.
No, he kind of fell in later.
You had Gesicki a couple weeks. I remember that. Right.
So I rotate tight ends a lot. Until Brian dropped Knox, and then I had him for the rest of the season. But yes, I probably won't even draft a tight end if one of the tight ends I don't like, or if one of the tight ends I like.
Well, you didn't know he was going to bust out.
I was just chilling. Wasn't doing God forbid anything.
He had Mark Andrews. Episode. He didn't care about.
That's fair. I had Mark Andrews. I was like, I don't need this guy.
You wouldn't have let him go if you had fucking Logan Smith as your tight end. You would have.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the tight end for the Commanders that's been in and out for 7 years now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Precisely. Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly what happened to me.
We will get into the Reyes. The reason I say, Brian, that it's a little bit late. I'm only a round or two late. Not wildly before, right? So, but we'll get to my order later. But I don't think you're that far off. Just that I think Reyes a little more right in the sense of you're going to want to look a little bit earlier, like 5th or 6th, to maybe get one of the ones that you would field weekly.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be doing some little rodeo style stuff. But go ahead, Brian, break this down. If you got your optimal draft, and then we'll take your number one pick away from you and see how you.
That's fair for sure. I always try to go running back first, due to the fact of I feel like one, how they produce a lot of points. If I can get a solid running back off the rip, that puts me up really big for success. Running back, wide receiver, quarterback. I think that's my top 3 in that exact order. I don't think exactly quarterback. There's always going to be good talent, whether it be on the board and or even free. Free agency, you never know who could come up in the spotlight.
Sure.
For example, pull him up here. Justin Herbert. Sitting, I don't even think anybody drafted him back his rookie season until Tyrod Taylor got his lung punctured, and then boom, he was on the spot throwing passes, making points.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something. Also with that quarterback situation, I think Kenny Pickett is at some point is going to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think he's going to be drafted at all in the fantasy type. However, if he's still sitting there and he starts slinging that ball, that's definitely something I would look into.
Would you draft him though, or are you going to pick him up on the free agency?
Draft him, but he'd be one I'd be waiting on because of the situation of unless they come out with who's starting, which won't happen probably for a little while until the season starts.
After preseason.
Then
just remember now too that with that added flex, you have an added slot on your bench. Just remember that. So you have an extra bench slot now.
So now with that flex, that's where it kind of goes back to after that quarterback. Honestly, I'm a flip-flop between running back, wide receiver, depending on who is it on the bench.
Available.
It's all about availability. That tight end, that's still looking like a 7th pick-ish for me, just because of the fact of, they can produce points and they can go 40 points, 50 points, etc. But how often does that happen, for one? 2, I'd rather be able to especially when buys start getting into play mid-season or so, now you got to start flipping people in and out. How can you keep your structure and your points coming in if you're just playing people that you just picked up off free agency that aren't they're like shot in the dark. So I think that's where that back and forth kind of combo comes with. And also on top of that, running back, wide receivers, tight end, you could easily throw them into a flex. In my head, I don't really think of a flex as a position. It's just a slot I will fill with whatever wide receiver.
Whoever I think's best.
Yeah, at that time with that, the only reason why I would draft a kicker at this point, again, that's very late in the draft, but at the same time, if Justin Tucker's sitting there and I got
that's the only one I would draft.
Yeah, if I got my starting lineup squared away, Justin Tucker's sitting down there, that's probably where I'll go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cherry. That's a cherry. I mean, especially if your lineup is looking real fucking mint and you can just drop Justin Tucker on there. Yep. Any position that you can fill and like drop and fire and forget that fucking spot is good. Even kicker, because if you can get a kicker that you can start every week and never have to worry about it, that's always gonna be beneficial. The thing with the
who's
tight
your
end,
first pick? Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Excuse me.
Okay, so
I'll get to that though.
The tight end thing, right, is and it's kind of the same thing with basically everything past wide receiver and running back falls under this rule. And it's if nothing worth starting is available, you can go ahead and snag someone like Tucker or Bass or fucking the Bills defense, some like that. Maybe a Dawson Knox or Gronk's not starting. Whoever's replacing Gronk, you is probably going to be a top
Cameron Brate.
10. Okay. He'll probably be a top 10 tight end this year if Brady continues to use him like he did Gronk. So someone like that, like a 7th or 8th round pick makes sense if you're not really going to be filling your flex with quality running backs and receivers. So it's not dumb to draft the kicker. Jim did give me shit though for drafting 2 kickers last year, but that was I think that's fair. It wasn't though because I was right. Because I was so confident in my picks that I was like, I'm just going to set my entire lineup right now.
His roster was mint. His roster was mint.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, you have solid roster.
I'm not going to tell other people to do that, though. I would not recommend you draft 2 kickers. I would recommend highly against it.
I would say it was almost your optimal draft. I mean, like you had Allen. You had Eckler, too. Is it Eckler?
I think.
No, I had Joe Mixon.
Mixon,
not Eckler. I had Eckler in my brother's league.
That's right.
Yeah, I had Mixon, Jacobs, Fournette, running back. For wide receivers, I had A.J. Brown, Chris Godwin. I don't remember who. Not Mike Williams.
Patterson you got on the trade later.
I had DeAndre Hopkins. That was the other star receiver that I had. I had a really fucking cherry lineup on paper, right? Yeah. So I was like,
that's fair.
I wanted to perfect my lineup and be like, all right, there's no good kickers left. Let me get these 2 that I'll be able to alternate, right, depending on who they're playing. Okay, let me get defenses that I'm going to be able to alternate depending on who they're playing. Now, that fell apart later on. I ended up just starting Bass every week regardless of who they were playing because kickers last year were fucking terrible, and same goes for defense. I just picked whoever was playing the easiest team is who I started.
Exactly. Because defenses and kickers are week-by-week basis. You're not – I would not recommend – I would not recommend even drafting a defense unless it's like your very last pick, or if like you happen to get your solid lineup, you got your onesies and twosies to switch out for your buys, your flexes, injuries, of course. Easily go get yourself the Pittsburgh Steelers off the rip.
Don't do that.
Come on.
Get the Bills.
Absolutely.
It's number 1 D. You can get the Bills. You can get the. We already did the defense episode. We already told you who to go get. Go get them. Steelers is not one of them.
All right. Too many new pieces.
Their defense sucks.
Them and what was the other? Oh, Philly. Philly has rookies. It seems.
Yeah, Philly's just gonna get ran over.
Okay. So then, Brian, let me ask you this: so, who is your first pick in an ideal draft? Just a name for the flow of the order.
Mine is Allen, obviously.
Yeah. Who are you going with?
I do a lot. I'm torn because of the fact of I like Austin Eckler. I've had him a couple of times. He's good production. He does get banged up a little bit. I'm gonna go with Austin Eckler as number 1 pick.
That's a fairly safe choice.
He's productive. He stays pretty healthy. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's able to nice little swing route, catch that ball, and run it down the field. Mm-hmm. definitely. I don't even know why Christian McCaffrey's up on this list as number 7. I don't think that's anybody's worth. That's not worth a damn.
You should not be drafting Christian McCaffrey in your first
not worth a damn. But
it's
I was
if
you could get him in like the 4th round, go ahead. But it'd have to be after who you really wanted. You know?
Yeah, watch exactly. Watch out for them injuries because you
should fill your 2 running back slots before you pick up someone as inconsistent as McCaffrey.
Sure.
So yeah, don't draft McCaffrey. Don't draft Dalvin Cook.
Oh yes, exactly. That's another one. Dalvin Cook,
3rd round. I don't know. I would still say fill your 2 running back slots before you pick him up.
That's
now.
Right.
I just would not put him, but that's tough because then somebody will grab him and have someone like Fournette. Yeah. I feel like because Fournette I picked up fairly late last year, and if you're leaving players like Fournette on the table, like I just don't think Dalvin Cook is worth an early pick, right? So go get somebody like Fournette.
However,
Joe Mixon maybe with their new O line will be a little bit better.
I have a lot of trust in Joe Mixon now. I have a lot of trust.
That's fair.
Cook's injuries suck, but he's still amazing. Like when he plays, he's just super.
He can throw 40 on a dime. Really can.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Brian. Okay. No, I was just going to add to your thing. Like, let's say I take Eckler away from you. Who'd you go?
Najee Harris. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Does that change the order of your draft though? If you grab Najee because he's also like a pass catcher, do you say
yes, he's able to catch that and still run?
And then would you go running back? Quarterback receiver now that your running back is kind of a receiver as it is, or do you still go running back receiver quarterback?
I'd probably still go back to the wide receiver due to the fact of it's still very early in the draft. There's still extreme talent on the board.
Definitely,
I would go back to wide receiver.
It's unlikely that you won't be able to get a quarterback at 3rd round. I think 3rd round is pushing it. I think you're risking a lot in a 10-man league. I don't think it's impossible for you to get a quality quarterback in the 3rd round. It sounds nuts, but like I said when I was talking about my draft order, it's unlikely that someone's going to pick 2 quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
So you should have a top 10 quarterback left in the 3rd round.
5. Yeah.
And again, right? So that's 10
this rank, Joe Burrow's 10, Matthew Stafford's 12.
You'll find someone I think who can rise.
There's still good talent even if everybody takes
all of it
one
goes
off.
down.
Yeah. So that's where I sit mainly, especially for quarterback at 3. Like I'm pretty strong stance on that one.
Sure. Okay. I just want to make sure. Like if we messed up the order a little bit, but then you got someone else you like, does the tight end still stay in the seventh slot for you? Does that change under any circumstance?
It's all who's taken who's what. How's my
roster draft is dynamic out?
Yes. It changes all the time.
You would take Mark Andrews round 2 if he was available.
I don't think I would.
Or would you take like Devontae Adams if he was there?
If I take, let's say I take.
Yeah, that's my question. What receiver are you picking over Mark Andrews?
Round 1.
Right.
It said the top 4 are gone.
Round 2,
Cook,
let's see.
Adams and Jazzy Jeff are gone. Is there any receiver you would take over Andrews first?
Wait, you said Jazzy Jeff and who?
Jazzy Jeff, Kupp, and Devontae Adams got picked up by everyone's first round pick. Right?
And Jamar Chase is still sitting out round 2?
Probably.
Absolutely.
Waddle probably also.
Waddle.
If not even that,
I would say Jamar Chase is probably going to go first round. I see Jamar Chase disappear. Anyone that likes drafting wide receivers in the first 2 rounds, Jamar Chase is going to be gone.
Which is
probably by
for
the
sure.
time comes around.
For sure. Even then, still, like, I recommend Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase. Even then,
obviously, anyone that you would pick Diggs over Mark Andrews?
I would.
Yes,
That's crazy. I wouldn't. I'm a Bills fan. I would pick Mark Andrews up over Stephon Diggs every day.
Do you know why? Because Beasley is gone to take the clutch catches from him. That's why. Because now Diggs get even more.
But Diggs doesn't play in the slot, and Cole Beasley was a slot receiver.
I think Gabriel. We'll get into the Bills later, but Gabriel Davis's situation does not change the fact that Diggs is still Gabriel Davis number 1.
Does not play in the slot either. He plays gunner on the outside.
No. I'm just talking about targets away from Diggs. Right. To me, it's improving.
But okay, I don't want to dig into the Bills right now.
No, I know. We'll get into it. Yeah, we'll get into the Bills. But I would, right? And I think based on Mark Andrews, everyone knows I'm never a Mark Andrews fan. And the reason
that's
that is
because you're dumb and wrong and don't like it
because
no
I don't
reason.
trust who's throwing
Mark
him
Andrews
the ball.
last season only had
my problem.
about like 12 more points than Stephon Diggs did, though. So,
But okay, there's caveats to that. He had a bunch of late games with like 30 points, but he had like 10 opening games of like 8. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like,
so it's.
But
I think that's the thing with the tight end is like,
that's the position entirely.
You just don't.
Mark
know
Andrews wins leagues though.
Yes,
just like Kelsey does.
Which is why we added that second flex.
Stephon Diggs does not. Stephon Diggs,
he don't win anybody.
Yeah, that's because of the rest of your roster. Obviously, he's not going to fix the rest of your team. But I'm talking about these are Mark Andrews. You beat people you should not have beaten because of Mark Andrews, and it's the same for. I lost games I should not have lost to Mark Andrews and Kelsey in other leagues, right? Diggs is not doing that. He's not dominating two positions. When you're looking at your rosters, right, and you're like, I've got him here, I've got him here. Diggs is not the dude you're like, God, I got to fucking have 3. He's outscoring 3 of my players. That's not happening with Diggs. That does happen with Mark Andrews. That does happen with Travis Kelsey. That's the only reason I'm saying, like, there's a lot of receivers that Mark Andrews, I would recommend you draft over, right? I'm not saying...
No, I hear you.
I'm not saying necessarily I'm going to do it. I probably would, to be completely honest with you. If Mark Andrews is available in the 4th round, I'd probably pick him up. Even though I said I'm going running back and wide receiver back and forth to fill my roster. I would probably pick Mark Andrews up in the 3rd, not the 3rd round, to be honest. Probably 4th round. There's going to be enough receivers that I want to start consistently. But I don't think drafting the top 5 tight ends in like 4, 5, and 6 is crazy. Now the rest of the kind of position is
there.
Like it's all again flexible depending on who's there.
Sure.
So I mean, if I could pick up like Mark Andrews in like the 5th, maybe 6th. I highly doubt he's going to be there.
That's my point. Is that he's not going to be. He's going to go in the 3rd or 4th round.
I don't know.
I'd say second. I'd say second.
Really?
I literally have seen people draft because he's a receiver.
That's why.
But here's the thing with that.
Because he receives.
If you draft him that high, granted, he will produce. But doesn't that leave the door open for someone else to come back and snag Adams?
You're missing out on an entire round of receivers.
Yes.
But those guys are also there's a good chance those are going to go in the 1st round.
First pick.
It's entirely possible someone's going to be like, fuck QB, fuck running back. I'm getting Jamar Chase 1st round. I want a receiver that I'm going to be able to start every week, right? That's entirely possible. I don't recommend it, but it's something to think about. If you're watching your draft board and not a lot of running a lot of running backs and receivers are going, you might want to throw your lot in with
see what you can grab.
A different position that is going to be weaker, because those dudes, if everyone spends their first 4 to 5 rounds and nobody's picked a tight end yet, you're going to have ample opportunity in that window to get a receiver and receivers and running backs that will play well for you.
You can play weekly.
But what you'll will have the potential to have that they won't is a top tight end.
Right.
That's going to put you
above. It really is
that.
Only like 5. It really is.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
There's not a round where everyone's going to get a tight end, right? There's a round where everyone's going to get a top quarterback, running back, and wide receiver.
So let's say we agree with the top 5, right, for the tight ends. Now we now add a second flex. To me, a second flex can make up for a shit-ass performance by a tight end that just didn't get the looks, right? Does that change your strategy even a little bit? Brian, I would say the receiver thing now becomes even more important than the order you just said, right?
Now that we got that flex,
because you can add a lot of players
again, that's why that tight end for me, I feel falls. Even though Mark Andrews, they're all top notch, they can produce.
I get it.
But if I can get another, I don't know, running back that can catch and run out the backfield, I think I could put him in there. Yep. He could counterbalance the bullshit tight end. Or if my tight end is pretty solid in the middle, I'll take a 10-point, 12-point tight end all day.
And especially like the guys who play on teams that run the football a lot. Like, dude, tight ends get hurt every year. Every year they get hurt, right? So, it's a matter of hey, I've got Waller. Yeah, he's tore his ACL week 3.
Actually, you know who? I take that back. Pat Freiermuth. That's who I'd pick up.
He will be there. he'd be there.
I will.
And I like
there you go. He just popped in my head. I'll pick him up.
So, pick him up when?
There's that 6th, 7th round he's talking
about. That's 6th, 7th? That's
no. Here's my question, though, with the tight ends, though. This is the only thing that would change my strategy. This is it. There's only one thing. If your league allows you to slot tight ends in the flex, they move up. Those
Which is ours.
Tight ends move up. Yeah. Right. So you can – there's – Mark Andrews is a receiver in fantasy if you can slot him in the flex. And then you can throw Freiermuth into fucking the tight end. Yeah. And that's not a bad fucking lineup right there. If you've got Andrews and then a middling tight end in the tight end slot. If you don't have to play those top tight ends as tight ends, your lineup becomes a lot stronger because now you're not only are you getting the value of that tight end in the flex position, but you're going to be able to compete with whoever your playing's tight end is because unless they have a top 5 tight end, your tight end is going to be just as good as theirs. So you're getting way more value out of your flex position. And
you still got your gems previously, so you don't have to worry about getting them after the pick you spend on a tight end. You've already got it.
So picking up Mark Andrews and Kelsey and those dudes, not necessarily those dudes. Those two guys are going to go early, but scoring tight ends like Dawson Knox and Muth, guys that get used in the passing game, not just blocking. It makes more sense to draft them now because they have additional value.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same reason I draft running backs earlier. It's because they have more value than just a standard wide receiver. Yep. Those tight ends that get used more as receivers, not necessarily to the degree that Kelsey and Andrews do, but just more often than your regular tight end that just blocks. They have more value now because any player that you can play in multiple positions has value, right? So now it's not just RB3s and fucking WR4s in your flex position. Right. You have a TE2 in your flex position. That's considerably more valuable if you're smart about it. Sometimes you can kind of burn yourself, though, with tight ends. Just
tight ends can do that.
Yeah, you're right. They can just pass block all day.
But I would start Dawson Knox and Muth over a Jacoby Myers in my flex. So
absolutely.
They have value now. So that's what would change it for me.
So for me, right? So Brian, I think we've analyzed the way that you're doing it. So actually, I have 2 different strategies this year. I'll talk about the first one, and if we have time, we'll get to the second one. I am going balls deep on receivers early, and I mean first 2 picks, no doubt. I'm not even looking at the quarterback or running back position. 2 top receivers off the rip. I'll go get a quarterback, and then I'll go fuck around with running backs. And the reason I say that is because we have just seen the passing game be such a league-changing performance. Like, when you talk about points, Cooper Kupp was the top producer, and it wasn't even close. Like, by 100 fucking points, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm the top 5.
Adams had 344.
Yeah, wasn't even close, right? Now, that's dependent on me being first overall, right, or third overall. Let's say I'm middle of the pack, 5th overall. I am still going to grab my first pick this year as best I can is Jazzy Jeff.
That's fair.
Because I've already seen them get the new offensive coordinator, get the new style, and do all that. That's more analytical than I want to be about it. It's because he's the best dude on their team, right? He's the top talent that catches the ball out there. I understand you got Dalvin Cook and stuff. I'm saying on a strictly receiver level, right?
Yeah.
Jazzy Jeff had a 60-point game last year for me. 60.
Yeah.
Right? And on a bad day, 17. I'll take a bad 17-day every time, man. I'll take it. Right?
Your bad is higher than some quarterbacks.
Now let's say they the second round comes through and then people draft their normal comfortable spots of running backs or quarterback or receiver, right? I can promise you there's going to be a second receiver for me to pick up that will be startable weekly with breakout performances like a Terry McLaurin or a this one crossed my mind the other day. Diggs will be in that range. You'd see Diggs in there. You won't see Adams, and you won't see Kupp, and you won't see Chase, but you'll see guys right outside that barrier that Mike Evans is lower on the list.
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin will both be there also.
Yep.
I get shit for drafting Godwin. I did last year. People were I think it was Brock that was talking shit though, So he didn't fucking know anything. He also gave me shit for drafting DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, okay, Brock, whatever, bro. But because he was giving me shit because they both have like leg muscle issues. I think. They both have ACL issues, maybe. But if Chris Godwin is available in the second round and you're like looking for consistent receivers, if you're comfortable,
ball, dude.
If you are comfortable, and you know for sure you're gonna be able to grab a solid quarterback in the third round, it's not insane to me to be like, I'm getting 2 WR1s, like top 10 WRs in the first 2 rounds. That's not crazy to me at all. I use the same logic, but for running backs. Who?
Yeah. I think you might see a Tyreek Hill in there. That's possible because I think people are a little bit wary of Tua. And I will absolutely pick up Tyreek in the second pick.
I think so. I think he's likely to go in the second round, but you might be able to get him before someone else.
Speed.
That's right. And if I'm in the middle of the pack in the second round, let's say he's gone. I want to say his name, but that's just buying the hype. I'm not picking up CeeDee Lamb. I'm not doing it. I think Debo goes in the first round hands down. I don't think
CeeDee Lamb is a flex.
Yeah,
Debo is also
and a good flex, but a flex.
Yeah, a flex for sure.
Keenan Allen would be my second pick then.
Interesting.
And just because of the consistency,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm feeling flashy, or let's say the draft was like super heavy, everyone went receiver, you're going to see Jalen Waddle, you're going to see T. Higgins, Pittman. I'm not picking up DK. You couldn't pay me to pick up DK.
That's fair. Well, Scary Terry.
Or even I would absolutely pick up Scary Terry. And then I would also pick up Hollywood Brown now in Arizona because he has a much better quarterback arm talent.
Sure. I'm not disagreeing. I can buy that. I completely
Renfro also
agree
makes
with
the
you.
cut too.
I mean, if Renfro's like depending on how the draft went, I'm going to pick him up early. Yeah, I'm going to. Because not only because of talent, but because I like him a lot, and I'm going to pick him up. I agree with you. Not saying that I would do it, but you're absolutely 100% right. Those dudes are going to be available, and you know why? Mm-hmm. Because I would not draft any of those dudes that early. Nope. I'm not picking up Scary Terry. I'm not picking up fucking.
He's probably my second pick, but yeah.
I wouldn't pick up AJ Brown. I'm probably not going to pick those dudes up. I'm not going to pick him up in the first 3.
No, not yet.
Even Hunter, I probably wouldn't pick him up that early. Like, I'm not a wide receiver guy though.
Hunter would be like if we were a little bit towards the beginning of the draft or middle of the draft, Hunter becomes the number one flex on this board, hands down. Mm-hmm. He's a number one flex. Every week you can play him in the flex. He'd be great for you. And every now and then he's going to have huge breakout games. But you'll see dudes come back to life this year, I think, especially since we've beefed up our roster. I think you'll see more Adam Thielen. I think Allen Robinson in LA is a great pick. These are dudes that fall towards the back end of the draft for me, not because they're not good, but because since I spent 2 picks early on a receiver, my next one's going to either be a running back or if like a Lamar Jackson or maybe Dak. I don't know. I got burned by Dak last year. I'm not sure.
No.
But I would if Lamar Jackson or a running quarterback is still out there, I'll go get him. I don't know why people say Jalen Hurts.
Dak is not a running back.
Well, no, he's
Dak is not a running.
Not since he shot that ankle. That never happened.
The anchor went.
No, he does not do it anymore. And for that matter, though, Josh Allen cut back like 30% of his runs, right? So it goes up and down who becomes that number one rushing quarterback.
His number of runs, but his production is still very high.
No, I'm not saying it's bad production. It's just the total amounts of it. But by that time in the draft, I will see guys like, I think you'll see a Russell Wilson easily. Maybe a Jalen Hurts. Now, that's like straight up me gambling on his rushing ability. I don't have faith in his arm.
Both of those dudes, it's their draft percentage, like how high they get drafted, is going to be based off of whether or not you're it's going to be like the mindset of your league on what percentage of this league buys the hype on these dudes.
Yep.
If most of your league is like, no, Russell Wilson's going to do terrible in Denver and Jalen Hurts is never going to be fixed, they're going to be later. They're going to be available later. Yeah, for sure.
I would say based off of last year's production, I think Jalen's certainly a top 10 quarterback just for the points. But I know that they've added tons of stuff to that roster, but that's a whole other story, right? So I go right off the rip. I go with my 2 receivers. I know I will definitely be able to grab. Let's say I'm fifth, right? I'm definitely still going to see Stephon, Justin Jefferson. Probably might be there, might be. Depends. That's a personal thing because he's an LSU boy, and I will always pick up my LSU guys, right? But he also still is a top 5 receiver, regardless of what you think of it, right? I I probably would grab Tyreek if everybody went receiver first overall pick and Tyreek was there. I would grab Tyreek. I'd grab Tyreek over Debo. I would. And the reason I would is because San Francisco is so weird of an offense, man. It's hard to know. Like, Debo, midseason on, was excellent. Don't get me wrong. He's a great athlete. But there's so many weird nuances, and now you got a new quarterback and a new O-line, and there's too many things that I need to see a couple more games, man, before I burn my first overall pick on a guy. Now, if he's there by my second pick, absolutely, no doubt. No brainer.
Do we know if Jimmy G or Trey Lance is starting? Because I've heard there's
Trey Lance
rumors.
Jimmy G will be traded by the end of the month or next month.
Interesting.
They've already confirmed.
Okay.
He probably goes to Seattle, as they say. Or
I would like to see that.
I think that'd be a nice fit. Yeah. I don't
think Jimmy G's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's going to run around for 1,000 yards a year.
No.
But you also can't deny, like, this is one of my favorite stats about Jimmy G. It's ugly, it's gross, but he has a fantastic playoff record.
Yeah.
Like, you can't beat it. It's such a weird little thing that, like, it's like, it's not that great of a team. They just knocked off, like, the 14-win Packers like it was nothing.
Win, baby.
The Rams were in a fight for their lives to get through the Niners, right? So, like,
yeah, I remember that. That was a doozy.
So let's say I make my 2 picks. I'm pretty happy. Like, any of the top 12, I'm pretty happy with 1 and 2 picks. I really am. And I don't think everyone. What's that?
Ayuk
falls right with Hunter with me. Number 1, number 2 flex. If he's there 4th, 5th round, sure. I think he will be too. I think people are still unsure on Ayuk because of the last season's weird.
If it's someone who doesn't know Ayuk and what he's able to do, they will didn't keep track of him. They're going to look at his stats and sleep on him because
they will.
They're skewed. His stats are
just
skewed.
And I know you don't like this at all, but that flex area to me is the most exciting part. Get your highlight stars, of course, always beat that roster up. But then it gets really fun because you start to pick the dudes you like. You know what I mean? Like, the dudes you want to
that's
see.
the best part of flex. That's why flex is so great.
Yeah, flex is great.
Who you like.
Because it's like, oh, you know what? I watched him at Michigan. He did great there. Who cares if he's not the number 12 receiver? No one gives a shit.
Yep.
It's the dudes this is what makes your roster you. And this is why no one does auto draft anymore. Because it takes away from the personality of your team. Now we're getting to the philosophy of it. But that whole area that gets really, really interesting in flex are dudes that can win you a league. They are there. It just depends on how the season shakes out. But like Juju Smith-Schuster, Hunter Renfrow,
I was going to bring him up.
Devontae Smith. These are dudes who could definitely put up 30 in a game. It can happen all the time. We just don't have the evidence yet to put him in that first 2 draft pick range.
Juju will never put up 30
Do you
points.
think – I don't think he will, but do you think he'll get better? You think he'll get a lot better now that he's –
I think he's going to do great in KC. But we'll get on that tangent with the Bills.
I don't like that.
No, I got you. So let's – like I said, so I go receiver, probably quarterback, most likely running back. By this time, running back-wise, since dudes love fucking running back so much, you might get a DeAndre Swift. And Aaron Jones, maybe.
In round 4, you think Swift is going to be able? I think not drafting a running back.
That'd be more round 3.
Okay, in 3, I can see that. Here's the thing with what you're saying is, if you're going to do 2 rounds of wide receiver, you're basically saying I'm only going to be starting middling running backs.
Yes.
There's no way you're not going to have a RB1, RB2 available.
Nope.
In the 4th round. It's not going to happen.
And
you would be crazy to not draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds. That would be a mistake.
That's why I say it's really a toss-up. If I go to the quarterback and all I see, like, the next number 1 pick on the quarterback section is, like, Derek Carr, no. I'll just go get running backs.
I'll build the rest of my roster. Sure.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then I'll try to grab one of the youngins that moves a lot, and maybe I get lucky. Maybe, right? To me, quarterback is such a weird position. It really is to me. And that's because it's kind of like tight end. The first 5 to 7, sure. Awesome. Sure. They're going to do well. After that, man, it gets week to week. And I don't care what quarterback you throw up there. Russell Wilson, week to week. Week to week. Man. Like, you can't convince me otherwise.
Month to month at this point.
Dak Prescott, week to week. Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's best game is going to be like a 24, 25-pointer, which is great. But you're not going to see a 40-point like an Allen game or a Lamar Jackson game. That's why I say by this time, let's say all the fancy mobile quarterbacks are gone, I'm going to running back. And I'll deal with quarterback later. I'll probably go quarterback right after that running back pick, right? By then, I'm assuming all that's left in running back because usually people do 1-2 running backs. There's a good chance of that. Maybe quarterback, running back, or running back, quarterback. But you might see you're not gonna like to see it, right? But you will see dudes like Saquon, Cam Akers, Montgomery.
Cam Akers is fine. I don't have any issue with or Montgomery either. Those picks are fine. Don't fucking draft Saquon Barkley. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Do not draft Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I agree.
You're an idiot.
I would take Saquon over James Conner. I would.
I would. And I hate James Conner. I would take very clear how I feel about James Conner in this podcast. I would never pick Saquon. I'm not picking either of them, to be clear. But I would not, if I had to pick one of the two, I'm picking James Conner over Saquon Barkley because I absolutely see Darrell Williams replacing Chase Edmonds, not fully, but in the context of he's a bell cow. He's going to carry the ball for James Conner, and James Conner's going to get put in when they're inside the 20, and he's going to rack up points with touchdowns. He's going to look super shiny, and he catches. To be fair, Kyler Murray can dump off passes to James Conner.
Which was not a part of his game in Pittsburgh. He was not a pass
and he's healthier than Saquon Barkley.
James Conner just fumbled that ball.
He was terrible in Pittsburgh. I've talked about that plenty.
That was an offensive philosophy. I think
that was offensive. Yeah.
Kyler Murray versus
Ben
fucking no. Kyler Murray versus Danny Dimes. Like who? Look at who is handling that ball before the snap.
Danny
Kyler Murray is a safer.
So here's where my strategy still maintains its integrity on this, right? So let's say I went receiver, probably quarterback, and I could get a top 7 guy still there. And then I go running back, and then I dip back into receiver. And I'll get – because once you're in the middle of running backs, there's no improving that, right? Everyone you pick there is going to be a crapshoot from that point on. So if you come back and it's like the 5th round and you got like a Jalen Waddle, he'll be there. He'll probably be there. Yeah. Unless dudes really love Miami, which can happen too, right? But if he's not there, Judy will be there. Hunter Renfrow will be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I don't think Waddle will be there, but I agree with
probably
what you're
not. But my point is
someone's
there will be
like
a guy that you like. You know what I mean? So that's and then after that, I'll come back to running back. It'll be like not him specifically, but like a Miles Sanders that's back. Where some weeks he'll do great, and then some weeks he'll be like 5 points, and hopefully that flex picked you up. You know what I mean? And then I'm going right back to receiver, and then I'll worry about tight end in the free agency because I don't have faith in the tight end position. Never have. I would rather field 2 awesome receivers, a good running back, a good quarterback, and 2 awesome flexes over. I'll go all the way down to like, I don't know, the Jets tight end. I don't give a shit, right? Because by that time, all those dudes are gone, right? You're not going to have anyone who's like, it's a weekly starter. I don't know, maybe like a Noah Fant who disappears and is resurrected in Seattle. But he'll still be on the free agency. He's not being drafted, right? And so I just want to shore up pass catchers. That's my whole thing this season that I'm going to give it a shot with. Just because I've had rosters built on running backs, and I've done okay, but I'm always like an 8 for 18. I'll make it to the playoffs, but I won't really have a splash player, and it turns out every time that splash player is a receiver or the other receiver. You know what I mean?
I've never had a receiver season. Like, I've never had a season where my receivers carried.
I had excellent receivers last year. I had Jazzy Jeff.
I had good receivers. I didn't have Jazzy Jeff receivers. But who saved me last season? Joe Mixon, when he fucking played, and Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette absolutely carried me point-wise outside of my quarterback position. There were weeks where Josh Allen struggled, and I won because of Fournette. I've never had that with a wide receiver. But it's also because I've never had someone like Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, my 2 every week that I started, both got me 20 points. Like, they're consistent, but they're not carrying me.
They're not 40-pointers.
I've never, and you see that with running backs. Almost every week, you're going to have at least 10 running backs that are 30-plus points. You're going to see that. That's not necessarily a thing for wide receivers.
That is true. It's risky. It is risky.
My first fantasy season, I had Le'Veon Bell the one season he played well, and Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. I had like those dudes by themselves with my brother's points got me like 200 points. The rest of my team is just icing on the cake. I mean, even without the adjusted points, that was Christian McCaffrey's bell cow season, and it was Le'Veon Bell's bell cow season. You know, they both played incredibly well. So that's where my philosophy for running backs came from. Is like these pass catching running backs get more points in fantasy.
They're league winners, man. They really are.
I got to have them in there. Whereas receivers, I've always had wide receiver issues because it seems like that position, one, the better guys are starting more battered, and.
But did you ever have like a Cup kind of receiver or Jamar Chase kind of receiver?
I've never had one. They're always picked early because I don't pick receivers early. Yeah. So I don't know. I just don't think that. I definitely agree with the passing thing though, because that's my philosophy with running backs is get a pass catching.
Everybody throws a lot more now. Yeah. So and then with that kind of stuff, like I don't think he'll be there, but you might find like in that tight end position since it fell by the wayside for me. I'm with Brian. I don't ever draft a defense. Who's number one of the week? Boom. Come on over, Cincinnati playing the Jets. Why not? I don't give a shit. Yeah. I don't care.
I'd probably.
There are defenses that are very good.
You don't need to draft them though. That's the thing. Yeah. Because if nobody drafted it, it's up to the waiver wire, right? Who gets the Bills defense that week?
That's fair.
So and that's what we'll talk about next week. Is like it's maintaining roster integrity and what are your rules like Ray? I know you have a rule like, hey. This dude sits on my bench for 3 weeks. If he can produce, he gets in. If not, he's out, right? Rules like that will really help young players and dudes who are new to this understand that, like, dude, some weekends dudes have a shit game. They just do. Yep. And they might even have 2 in a row. But at some point, they might get back on track and really start. David Montgomery is the ultimate version of this. He will always do well first 3 games, get injured, come back with the last 5 games, and be the number 1 running back. He's done it 3 years in a row now. Like, he just does it. But if you don't know to keep that roster integrity or to time it right with the free agency stuff, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, there's plenty I have to say on roster management because we talked about that plenty during the like when you and I were texting before the games, like what is going on in our league. Yeah, so I definitely agree that'll be a great topic for next week.
But it's always awesome to me the flex areas when you come into picking because I just can't get over the fact that like these are the dudes like if you try fantasy for the first year or you're in a fantasy season. The guys that make you remember how awesome the season was are the dudes you picked because you liked them. Yeah, right. It really is like, oh man, I just like watching that guy play. And if he gets you to win, you'll never not draft him. You'll never not draft him.
That was my point with Waddle. That is why people took it. Every league had one dude that took a chance on Waddle and won games for him.
Same as Devontae Smith.
That guy is that guy is always going to be trying to draft that receiver or that running back.
That dude will never be available.
Yeah, if I'm there, I'm going to pick up Hunter Renfrow. I'm going to pick up Fournette.
Exactly.
I'm going to be picking those guys
up. 2 names we threw out there, the dude who betted on Devontae Smith did not win that bet, and the dude who betted on Waddle absolutely won that bet. You know what I mean? So like, it really is a crapshoot, and you will have players that get on your roster where like, man, I don't fucking like this dude doesn't produce at all. It happens to everyone, right? The goal for the draft is to produce the amount of dudes that do that. Right. If you have a draft pick in the first 5 or 6 times, the first 5 or 6 drafts that you picked, and at some point you cut him, that's a loss. Right. That's a tough outcome that happens, like either injury or he just disappeared off the production face of the earth. Right?
Was it last season in our league where I drafted Le'Veon Bell? No, that was
2 years ago.
That was probably like 2 years.
Yeah, it's the year prior. So I drafted Le'Veon Bell, and he got fucking dropped from the Jets like week 2.
Dropped from the Jets, and then made that
was my
Kansas City
second round pick. Yeah, and he did not. Le'Veon Bell's boxing this year. He's not playing anymore. He didn't. I got burnt by a fucking my second round pick, first or second round pick. I think it was my first round, to be completely honest, because I don't think I had Allen that season.
I still don't feel
in that league.
Oh, actually, Ray. No, I remember. Do you know why? Because we were hitting golf balls at the driving range, and your cousin picked up Allen, and you were mad as hell about it. And then you got I remember now. Yeah.
So he's like, so Josh Allen's picked up. Yeah, everyone knows that I want Josh Allen, and it has nothing to do with fantasy. It has to do with him being my quarterback. But
he loves him.
So I picked up Le'Veon Bell because the previous season he did so well for me, and then little did I know that he was just not playing anymore. He had given up apparently in the offseason.
Yeah, he did.
But also like that bet could have hedged out just fine.
Absolutely. I mean, if he had played the same, I would have fucking dominated, but he didn't. it's kind of draft. Since to stick to the draft, biggest thing of advice for drafting is you need to know news on players. I had a bad habit in previous seasons of once the season was over, I stopped giving shit about football. I didn't keep up with I think if I had followed people who I was looking at to draft news, I would know that Le'Veon Bell was kind of trending down, like his OTA performances and things like that. If you don't know that your player is pursuing another team and things aren't working out, that's kind of a red flag for, hey, this guy might not produce this season.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And to add to one of your points, Ray, that you made last year that is a great point. You need to understand that you need to draft and you need to play the guys based on how they're playing now, not what they did last year.
Not how they used to, yeah.
And it's hard because, if you look at Kupp, you're like, obviously he's an auto start. Look at 2 seasons prior. He was not an auto start. You know what I mean? Like, it's how they're playing right now, and it's how they're playing. You just have to look at it week to week in the sense of okay, he got 10 points. If he has a 6-point next week and then a 5-point the week after that, you got to understand that this year's different. He might have the games he had last year, but he might not, right? So understanding that while you do need to remain knowledgeable on who's doing what and what's going on, and teams pick up offensive linemen and new coaches or whatever the hell it is, right? Miami's offense is going to be completely different, right?
Yeah.
And that's following off seasons shenanigans with Hill and new coaching and stuff, right? But if Hill can't find his gear in that machine, he's not an auto first overall pick. He's not.
No.
You know what I mean? Last year on the Chiefs,
I don't think that's going to happen, but it's a valid point.
I don't think he will. But it just
talent moves teams, and sometimes it elevates them, and sometimes they disappear. They fall off.
Yeah. So and that's going to happen no matter how well you draft. There will always be that one guy you're like, motherfucker, this dude should have worked out great, right? For me, I took a huge gamble and I picked up Kyle Pitts. Now Pitts overall did fine, but he had one single touchdown all year. Had plenty of receptions and 1,000 yards. It's fine. It's not like it was a bad. Yeah, it wasn't a bad year at all for him, but not a fantasy one where you need touchdowns, right? So if you're playing against other high octane players with Tyreek Hill, who could go for 280 fucking yards and 3 touchdowns in Tampa Bay, right? He was just running straight. I could not get over that, right? That's not what Kyle Pitts is going to do. But this year, in a new conference, in a new division, they might have that cornerback that can square up Hill and be like, yeah, maybe not catching anything.
Miami plays Buffalo twice a year. Tre'Davious White's back this season. So
yeah, I mean, that you're playing defenses that are different and just organized differently. So So don't religiously hold on to the guys that won you in leagues past, right? If you like them, great, pick them up. But don't say it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around. It doesn't.
I would say pick players you like. You like how they play over. Pick players who you think play really well.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of sounds goofy, but I'm going to pick Chris Godwin over Tyreek Hill. And now Tyreek Hill is almost definitely going to get more fantasy points over Chris Godwin, but I like Chris Godwin more as a receiver. I like the way he plays. I like how he functions. I like his role in that team.
Yep.
There's
I like his offense.
that make me nervous.
I like his
him
quarterback.
Playing Tyreek Hill receiving the ball from Tua against corners like Tre'Davious White is something that is going to give me pause versus even when it was Jameis Winston giving Chris Godwin the ball. I still trusted that more.
Sure.
And I liked that more. So Joe Mixon is a running back that I don't care for. I drafted him because there wasn't really that many
I had Cowboys on my team that
high caliber fucking CeeDee Lamb is a receiver who scores well. I don't really care for. It's dudes like that. It's they should be good.
Elliott.
Don't necessarily pick them up just because they should be good. No. Kind of. It's safer to go with a player you like because then, one, you have ulterior reasons to root for them outside of just score well for me. So
and to add one last point on that before we bounce, with that too, that's not to say don't pick up the guys you like. It's also not to say to bet heavily on rookies, right? That's the other end of the spectrum, right? So you have the dudes that you were convinced that would do well, and you're like, I don't know, man. I watched him in college; he did great. Sometimes it works, sure. I would say largely it doesn't the first season, right?
Yeah,
Waddle worked. Smith didn't, and that was a Heisman winner and a title winner.
I would say don't base it off of college at all.
You can't.
You need to be looking at their current situation.
Yeah. Like another one, had Judy not gotten injured, Judy was on an excellent path. But that's a risk that someone threw a dart at and was like, yeah, I know him from college days. Now he ended up getting injured, so it's a little bit different. Yeah. But the point remains for like, man, how many rookies last year that you can think of off the top of your dome, unlike Waddle, even Devontae Smith, just because you know where he was, were like, man, that dude was amazing, right? It's tough.
They don't hear a whole lot.
It's tough also,
on top of that, with rookies, they're not going to get as much playing time unless they're being thrown in that number one spot.
Yeah. Judy is an example of someone who you knew he was going to start, but you before it don't like, and you can get in your head like, he should be good. You need to examine the situation that he's in, like examine his environment. He's in a volatile
quarterback
organization, right? So the organization around him is very volatile. They make poor decisions at the QB room, and he just does not have someone that's going to get him the ball consistently.
It's not
matters. It's the same thing with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, but don't worry. We're going to do that next weekend when we talk about roster management and how we analyze trends and players and dudes we like. And we're going to go into when you see a free agency, how do you attack it? If you just see all these dudes, like you're going to have dudes that shine one week and actually are absolutely irrelevant because they're not even the starting running back. You know what I mean? That's going to happen, right? So we'll talk about that. Well, it happens, right? Like,
right. Or like
Winston Freeman.
Rams running back, what was his name? Snap.
What was this?
Malcolm Brown. Brown had 2 games where he had 30 points and then disappeared, right? That's going to happen.
Yep.
And we'll just go into the facts of like, this is how over our experience, how we know that like that's probably not here to stay, right?
Yeah.
So, but we'll do that next weekend. Does anybody have anything else to add to our topics this week?
I don't think so.
No?
I would even say actually next week I would even add about injuries in the season.
Yes.
With
total roster management.
Who's that second back that you could just pick up to fill that spot?
Or who's the dart that you can throw and just hold on a roster if you're good enough? Like if your roster's fine, who's the dude you can hold in the wings? Like maybe he might get that start. Maybe that dude gets injured. Like a Tony Pollard, good example. If Zeke is out, Tony Pollard's going to have a great game. You know what I mean?
Or that, or when it comes down to, if I could find him here. Alexander Madison? Is that his name?
Madison.
Yeah, exactly. If Cook gets out,
Madison's good.
Madison's the dude.
Yeah. Unless you're talking about that next week.
We will get – I know. You can tell this was a great topic for us.
For sure.
But to cap off the draft, I just want to reiterate, do not do auto draft.
Do not.
It's
not worth it.
What I don't understand the
fantasy.
Auto. It's like if it's not your team, why are you playing the fucking game anyway?
Yeah.
One. Also, you're ruining it for the guys that are trying to build their team. Because if you're just pulling the top stat person and you're not putting any kind of like strategy or logic in your roster, your lineup's gonna be fucked up. And so is their lineup because you just pulled players that fit their scheme. And I know that's kind of like, well, don't you want to fuck them up? Not really. It's not fun if everyone's teams suck. That's not going to be enjoyable. Auto
if you're
draft
just
is
mauling
lame.
each other,
Yeah, it's like, okay, so this dude has all the running backs, this dude has all the wide receivers, and we all suck. Like, none of us like our teams. That's not fun at all.
Yep. And you don't have the players you want.
No.
And so even if you are winning or losing, I'm telling you now, and Ray will be the first to tell you, like, when you had James Conner, you didn't like playing James Conner.
No.
Right? But you did to win, right? And so it was like, I'll tolerate it. But you would have rathered someone you enjoyed watching the play. Like, even if he was 20% less effective, you would have started him over it. Because you enjoyed watching it. So, but you guys will, I can't wait. I love when new players join because you shift from a team-centric focus to player-centric focus. And you get to know who's who and who does what, right? But we'll do that next week. So, anybody got anything else one more time? I know we're excited.
Yeah, that was it.
So,
Fuck auto draft.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll catch y'all next week.
Bye.